Flawedcast, episode 129, Addition Through Subtraction. Since Satan can't destroy the gospel, he has too often neutralized its usefulness by addition, subtraction, or substitution. J.C. Riley. The soul grows by subtraction, not addition. Henry David Thoreau.
Flawedcast. Get in the arena.
Good morning, Flawedcast Nation, and our highly esteemed listeners. I want to thank and welcome you for tuning in, sojourning another week with us. To my side, I want to announce the arrival of Mr. Carl Tuckerson. Carl, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. How are you today?
Oh, I'm just peachy keen.
You must be feeling like you're looking. That could either be a compliment or a put down. I don't know which one.
Well, I feel about 10 miles of bad road at this moment, but nonetheless, I hope you're feeling well. You're looking spry, ready
Thank
to.
you. Yes,
ready
we're
to hop in
celebrating
action.
another week of survival in this great country. This is Survival Party. That's what our podcasts have turned into, is a celebration of 7 days of life and survival.
The launch down to the pre-apocalypse, as it were. So anyway, once again, welcome everybody. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you subscribe. Please share anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Flawedcast or Flawedcast CLE. We're on Google, Apple, Spotify, Breaker. I just found out that Amazon has podcasts. And we are actually on Amazon Podcasts.
And you didn't know we were on, or did you put us there? Did you negotiate a good deal for us, our contract?
Yeah, next time Jeff Bezos flies a big dildo into space, I'm going to be riding in the cockpit with him, no pun intended. But, yeah, so if you are listener on Amazon at all, then check out their podcast. Make sure you follow us there. But you can also follow us on the Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Doing really well on Getter, doing well on Gab and Parler. Link below to my author page on Amazon, speaking of Mr. Bezos, is below in the description. Follow that link. You can pick up a copy celebrating the 1-year anniversary of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual. Been diligently working when I can't on my new book, and every word I write just reminds me of how much longer I have to go to get that thing completed. So hopefully it'll be here one day. But for those of you that would like a copy, and with the troubles and epic tales of woe right now, and you want one but you just can't afford one, please send us an email at flawedinccle@gmail.com. Be more than happy to email you a PDF version on the house. Also, if there's any questions, concerns, topics you would like us to discuss, flawedinccle@gmail.com. And I forgot to mention, on our social media, that's under Flawed Inc. as well. However, we're now going to transition to Carl's second favorite time of the episode, the patriotic 21 seconds.
Okay, everyone, take your right hand, place it over your left heart, repeat after us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so this is a Carl-inspired episode. And I think it's a good one. Once again, we're calling this Addition Through Subtraction, which is sort of an oxymoron. And we're going to be talking about the life of Gideon, who's in the book of Judges, chapters 6 to 8, who a lot of people who are familiar may understand or may know of Gideon, but we're going to get into that. But I found something that I thought was kind of apropos, and it said, sometimes in order to make something better or work more efficiently, you must take something away. This principle is called addition through subtraction. The theory behind addition through subtraction is that reducing components and complexity, it can add value if you make something. So there's actually a theory behind this I wasn't aware of as I started digging around. So last week we talked about chaos theory. This week we're talking about the theory of addition through subtraction. And I know we're going to get into a couple little personal stories and analogies that you can hopefully grab onto and utilize in your life. But Mr. Tuckerson, you have the floor.
Okay, well, first of all, just to establish the ground rules as we go forward, this is truly a podcast of encouragement. And this specific one that we're talking about today is specifically to encourage. And let's just take a couple minutes to journey how we got here. So many of our podcasts that we have done have individually and specifically investigated, researched, and looked at different systems and organizations in the world. We've done so many of that, where we just stuck on one system or one organization, and we looked at their birth, their statements of purpose, and what they're actually doing today. And when you do that, you start to weave together a picture. You start to put together a puzzle that shows you that we are inundated with evil on every hand. And so I think if we're not careful, like I know I was not, sometimes I look at the obstacle facing us and I realize it is so established, it is so insulated, it is so powerful, it is so mighty, and it has been establishing itself for so long. I can feel overwhelmed. I can feel like I am fighting a losing battle. And in this battle, Bill, what I have come to realize, there are two specific fights. One of the fights that people can fight, they don't even have to believe in God to be enraged. For example, when a government tells you that you must keep a certain distance, or you must wear a mask, or you must take a vaccine, or you must not go see your wife or your husband in a nursing home because it's unsafe, and they control you like that, and they dictate to you like that what you can do. Whether you believe in God or not, a lot of people became enraged because they felt like their civil liberties were being attacked. Am I correct?
Well, only in the fact that they felt like, because they certainly were.
Correct.
Feelings aside, they were.
Well, other people viewed that as a form of safety. Like, some people thought, okay, if I do that, if I obey that, okay, they're keeping me safe. Oh, thank goodness. I have no problem doing that because I'm protecting myself. So you have two different types of thought. You have the one that says, you're not going to tell me what to do. And you have the other that says, thank God you're telling me what to do. So there were certain people that were tricked into believing in safety that didn't exist. But either way, these issues that I am showing you have nothing to do with God. They have nothing, like, you could be an atheist, an agnostic, you could be a Buddhist, you can believe anything you want to believe, and those acts still bothered people. So that's the first battle. Okay. The second battle is spiritual. And I have transitioned from being more offended at the spiritual attacks than I am at my civil liberties. Now, it took a while for me to get here. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a fighter. And what I mean by that is I never have started a fight, and I never will. Not one time. And God is my witness. But by the same token, I have never ran from one. Ever. It wasn't acceptable in the way that I was raised.
You better never start a fight, but you better finish it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's similar.
And so when my civil liberties are under attack, yes, I'm going to naturally fight against that. But I've transitioned. I am more offended and more spiritually indignant of anger now about the attack in this country against Jesus and against his words, against his teaching, against his character, against his reality, against his existence. And I want to talk to that today.
Cool.
I want to deal with that today.
Okay.
We've dealt a lot with civil liberty attacks, but I want to talk about why I'm offended. To me, Bill, Jesus is not a dude with a beard and long hair wearing sandals. That's not who he is to me. So understanding who Jesus is personally to me will explain why I am transitioning into being offended by what I see happening in the world. To me, I've accepted the fact that Jesus was perfect. He never knew sin. He willingly came from heaven and left his throne. He accepted all humanity's sin and imperfection because he was the perfect sacrifice. And he died for me. Now, nobody else in my circle has laid their life down for me. And so when you start attacking and you start belittling and insulting and ridiculing Jesus, to me, you are insulting the very person that gave everything and laid his life down for me because I was incapable of paying that price for sin, and he paid it for me. So that's who Jesus is to me, and I guess the listeners maybe understanding this and realizing that in my life, that's my relationship with Jesus. He's not just a bearded, long-haired dude. He literally is the man that died for me. And no one else has done that for me. And so I am deeply troubled and deeply offended at the situations that are taking place in this country that are desecrating the teachings of God's Word.
Give me 2 examples, brief.
Well, the first one that is really troubling to me is that if you don't endorse alternative lifestyles, you are a bigot, a homophobe, a racist, a KKK member.
An ist, an ick.
Yes,
right.
Correct.
Yes.
So now here's the thing. They want you, these people and these organizations and these movements.
The system
wants you to stand on a podium and publicly declare that you endorse the lifestyle, the alternative lifestyle of other people. My responsibility as a Christian is to love them. Love them. Treat them with love.
Right.
Treat them with kindness. My responsibility is not to endorse, promote, or validate the decisions that they make for their self. That's their decisions. They can live and do whatever they want to do. So I'm offended that if I simply state my beliefs, that somehow I have been labeled something I am not.
Right.
Does that offend you? Does that bother you?
Well, it used to. I've gotten over it because, opinions are like armpits. Everyone has a couple and they usually stink. Regarding the offense of the acceptance, this is how I would word that. Mm-hmm. And I simply ask to give our listeners some context.
Yes.
The seemingly overriding majority of leaders or influencers are in this place where the expectation is that these immoral, these anti-biblical or anti-Christ belief systems that are becoming so dominant in the mainstream we are expected to embrace and endorse, like you're saying. And if you don't, then I say beyond the name calling, where I think we're entering into this time where people are losing jobs. There's an escalation of that. Obviously we see these systems are being led by these people who are evil and crazy, who are pushing this agenda for us to embrace, while it isn't anything in line with any just kind of decency or morality. So to me, the name calling is one thing. To me, I always look at like 3-4 moves down the chessboard. I see where this is going. Standing up to it now and capitulating is your choice. But it's like when the masks thing first started almost 3 years ago. Collectively, people said no, but they didn't. And then you got churches shutting down, you got businesses closing, you got, the supply chain breakdown, all the stuff that we are now seeing as a repercussion of that. And those are only things that are going to, you can even now start to see people are reinforcing masks. And, with this monkeypox they're pushing, the first round of the 5-6 vaccines didn't work, but now there's a super vaccine that's going to work. So evil and nefariousness is insatiable. It always craves more. It desires more.
It does. And so I guess I'm glad that you introduced that thought, because I really need to express that I could care less what somebody says about me or labels me. So what I'm saying is that by labeling and by what you had said with name calling, they're convincing an entire society by mind control that you are something. And the next step is, like you're saying, losing jobs. It eventually is going to lead to attacks, physical attacks.
Right.
It literally is going to lead to the acceptance in society that if a Christian who embraces the teachings of God's word is not going to capitulate, invalidate, and say that this lifestyle is acceptable, eventually down the road, it means you could just kill them.
Well, I mean, we can certainly see that the Nazis' behavior towards Jewish people was the beta test of that in many regards.
That is right.
Yeah, and in that, once again, history doing nothing but repeating itself, we see that what you're talking about is in the germination process of that.
Yes.
Can that be stopped? Sure. But collectively, we need to, unify, embrace, or return back to God's precepts and move forward with His
And when
authority.
we do that, and this is what we're going to get into, when we do that...
I'm trying to serve you the...
You did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
When we do that, that isn't what changes things.
Right.
What that does is, honestly, that puts you in position with your relationship with God, where you open the door and change the atmosphere for Him to move and to come in and do the supernatural things that need to be done to fight what we're facing. He comes in and He does the miraculous. But until we, what is the verse? If my people, which are called by my name.
Right.
Well, guess what? That isn't the Satan worshipers. That's not the politicians. That's the children of God, the Christians. If we will humble ourselves and pray and seek God's face and turn from our wicked ways. There's a lot of conditions on there.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, in my life, I really think the breakdown was I wasn't fulfilling my obligation. I wasn't meeting the conditions that God lays out simply in His Word to untie His hands, to unleash Him, to fight for us in the same manner we're going to see that He fought for Gideon.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty good introduction there.
That was an excellent introduction.
So we had said Judges 6-8 is the story of Gideon.
Affirmative.
Correct. And I don't want to read all of that because people can read that. It would just take up time. Read that story. It's a very powerful story. But what I want to do is glean from it. I just kind of want to narrate it and bring out some key points.
Cliff note it.
Thank you.
Yes.
A cliff note on the cliff note.
There you go. A cliff note.
Where we were was, once again, it begins by saying, and the children of Israel were doing evil. I mean, how many times, you and I talked about it before this podcast, how many times does the story start out with, and the people of Israel turned from God?
And just to modernize that for those who are listening who and I mean this respectfully, who may not quite grasp the implication of that, it's like the church and the leadership of the church of this day decided, hey, we're going to kind of do what we want. I was actually having this conversation with my fiance earlier this week, and the first precept of Satanism is do what thou wilt, that for thou is the whole of the law. And it's pretty much what they did. They instead of following the precepts of God, they decided to follow their own path. And so the modernization is if the church in America, if we will, start to do that. And there's no evidence of that's even happening right now, so don't even worry about that.
Correct.
That's hubris.
Right. So
Yes,
chapter 6, thank you. Chapter 6 begins.
Just clearing up for...
Right. Chapter 6 begins with the people forgetting all the things that God had done for them in the past and doing evil. And because of that, God allowed the Midianites for 7 years to torment Israel. And what I mean by that is that these Midianites would allow the Israelites to go into the fields, to do all the hard labor, to get all of the work done to produce a harvest. And when harvest time would come, the Midianites would just swoop in because of their power and take all of the food that the Israelites had worked so hard to do and invested their time. They would take their sheep, they would take their cattle, and they literally were having the children of Israel survive on grass and the bare necessities for survival because they were taking their harvest and they were tormenting them. And this was all because the children of Israel turned their back once again to God and started worshiping Baal like all these other cultures had infiltrated and taught them. And they forgot everything that God had done. So they had switched to evil. But there was a righteous judge named Gideon. And he was troubled about what had happened. And he was bothered. And a lot of it, as we had talked before, a lot of us are bothered by what is happening. We're troubled. And I would interject to say right now, if what is happening doesn't offend you, I'm not angry with you anymore. Like I went through this phase where I was angry at people for not being angry or for not recognizing. And I was praying about that, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, Carl, if this troubles you, maybe this is your battle. If it doesn't trouble other people, maybe they are fighting other battles. Don't be offended because your brother on your right hand is not offended at what you are fighting. So I would just interject that. If what I am saying is resonating with you, maybe you are one of the people that God has chosen to fight in this battle. And if this just flicks you and falls off you like water off a duck back, maybe you're not, and that's okay. And it was a really big obstacle for me to get over, Bill, to allow that animosity that was building up to go.
Sure. I get it. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely.
So Gideon was someone that was troubled, but he was scared. And the reason he was scared is because he was a meek man, a mild man, a timid man, a shy man. And he came from the weakest of all tribes. And he was the weakest in his father's family. So you had all the odds against this dude to stand up and do anything about it. He just didn't have the right characteristic or personality set for it. And this is who we're talking about. Now, when we get to the point I'm moving to now, Gideon is hiding in a wine press. He is taking his wheat and doing the threshing. That's where you get the grain out. That's where you get the good stuff. Usually that's done in the wheat field. It's done right there. That's the proper place. But because the Midianites were known for attacking while you're doing your threshing in the wheat field, Gideon gathered his harvest and he went and he was hiding. He was alone and he was hiding because he was scared. He was afraid. And so that's where we are now. And an angel appears to him. And listen what the angel says to this scared, shy, spineless man.
In hiding
At that moment. Mighty warrior. Okay, I think just stopping right there. Sometimes you could just read 2 words and lights go off. I think this is a situation where if you didn't know the story, you would think the angel made a mistake.
I believe one translation of the scripture say mighty man of valor. I think that's one of the ones I read said that, but I think it's the same point.
It does.
Yeah.
Valor equals courage and strength, not hiding in fear. But the angel appears to him and says, mighty warrior, the Lord is with you. What I noticed right there is when the Lord is with you, it flips the switch of who you are. Gideon was one person in one moment, but when the angel showed up and let him know that you're a mighty and you're a warrior and you're a man of valor and you're a man of courage and you're a man of strength, he was none of that.
Right.
But the phrase that changed everything is when the reason he could become that is the angel says, because the Lord is with you. And when we look at these organizations and institutions, and we've talked about how they've developed since 1920 and all the way to where we are,
right,
we could be weak and timid and shy and fearful. But the thing that changes, the thing that integrates into us and transitions us into the mighty warrior is the fact that the Lord is with us.
Yes.
What do you think?
The beginning of Gideon's journey is a far cry from where it ended.
Correct. And then let's transition into another word of encouragement that Gideon gets. The Lord says, go with the strength you have. I want to pause there because Gideon had no strength. Gideon had no courage. None. That's why he's hiding. And the Lord chose him anyway, and he says, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel. Now, when you hear that, knowing what we just described on who you're talking to, you realize it's impossible. It can't happen. I would say to you today that what we're facing and what we're dealing with to gain victory in our life over the attacks that come against us, it's impossible and it's not happening.
Well, I would think it'd be like if God spoke to someone in America and said, hey, mighty dude of courage, go save America.
That's exactly the equivalent.
Yeah.
But listen at this. This is what changes everything. Go with the strength you have, which should encourage most of us to see how Gideon had none. And then this is what changed everything. This is what the Lord said. I am sending you. Again, boom, it changes everything. First of all, what changed Gideon was, I am with you. Right. What changes Gideon next is, I am sending you. When we accept our mission and when we accept our message as being the message of God, the mission of God, it changes everything. We cannot win and we will not win if we go out on our own and use the vehicles that are being used against us through media and organizations, and we think that we're going to send out one tweet or one Facebook post or one interview on CNN and that all of a sudden that's going to change everything. That's your own effort. That's your own energy and your own ability without the miracle working power of God. But when we embrace the fact that says that what we're fighting right now, we're doing because God is with us, and that what we're going to do in the future, we're doing because God is sending us, all of the sudden we embrace his responsibility and we accept the miraculous to enter into our life.
Yeah. I think that's accurate in regards to finding our purpose. Yeah.
Okay. And then...
No, I'm taking this in because these are things that even personally, internally, not to get off the subject, but like as I'm like writing my new book and as I'm about to enter a new phase of my life and all these things.
I'm not even going to charge you a nickel for any of this stuff that you put in there.
Okay, well,
It's free.
Okay, well,
Take it.
thank
Put
you.
it in the book and get it out.
Okay, but it's like I'm like, yes, okay, what, so I think this is going to hit a lot of people in a lot of ways. I think that the larger implication and where we end up is the payoff that I think is going to kind of bring everything together.
Yes, and the Lord again. And now, mind you, the reason that this conversation had to take place was because the Lord had to convince Gideon.
Right.
He really did. I mean, the Lord had to convince him. And so that was bomb 2. Here comes bomb 3. The Lord told him again, I will be with you. There's your preface. And you will destroy the Midianites easily. Not even hard, not even a struggle. Easily, the destruction will happen through you because why? I will be with you. I'm telling you, I want everyone to be encouraged. I want everyone to be strengthened. I want everyone to be refreshed because we are being bombarded daily and every hour with defeated messages to our minds, with lies and deception, and I am done with that. Like my lifestyle, my life, my thinking, my actions, I am taking God's word as my source. I'm done with all the other stuff, and I am strengthening myself. And I would just say, Bill, that everyone has that right. They can never take your right away to strengthen yourself every day, starting your day, shaping your day. Taking the beginning of your day and giving it back to God, commit that to God and say, I don't care what any organization says, any news outlet, I don't care what anyone says that talks to me I am done with it. I care what you say. And when you read these stories, they're not just stories. They are words of encouragement to us because we are the last generation. We are the people that have been honored to be alive to bring in the last great revival before the Antichrist, to see as many souls saved as possible before time runs out. I mean, that is us. We need to be encouraged with God's word.
I think one of the things that just kind of hit me as you're talking about this is in the regard of, and where I would like to speak to is like people who, like I know a handful of people, and I used to be like this, that if like you're involved in a local organization of faith, and I don't want to speak out of term, so I'm not speaking in terms of rebelliousness before I go any further, but God came to Gideon directly and said, this is what you are charged to do. I'm with you to do it. I am fully capable of being able to supply everything you need. And even the confirmation through Gideon's life from God was continual. There were, even before the big battle, he and his armor bearer snuck in and behind the camps, and they're like, hey, they overheard this guy say, I had a dream that Gideon and the Israeli armies just wiped us out. So, and it was a confirmation that he needed continual confirmation from God, and whether that's a lack of fear or a lack of faith or overwhelming fear, I don't know. But if God is speaking something to you to do, and if nobody sees it and nobody gets it, and you share with those who are, like, if you have a pastor or whatever, and they're like, no, I don't know, I don't think that's, then, you have a choice to make. Are you going to sow into what you believe as God's telling you, invest into that, invest into yourself, and try to hear and listen more accurately, or are you just going to be like, no, I'm good then, and just, ride a chair?
Yeah, which is happening, and I get that, and I really want us to be a conduit of change. Well, like in the past, I think with my own self, when I would see all of the obstacles within the Christian faith, within the Christian family, rather than being spiritually mature enough, and I think the biggest thing, honestly, if I'm going to tell the truth, is without being loving enough. I think that was probably the biggest thing that was missing from my own self, if I'm being real, is that the strategy may have been right, the words may have been right, the thinking may have been right, but the biggest part of what attracted God to Gideon is what always attracts God to man, and that's the condition of the heart. And I think that because the love was absent in my heart the way it needed to be, if I'm being real, then the words fell on deaf ears. And sometimes you can be saying the right words and you miss the anointing of the effect of change to the people, because when you're delivering it, the love is missing. And I think that that's the water. I think that that love is like water that just waters the plant and brings the life out and brings that sprout into something beautiful. And at this point, as I've gotten older and I've learned so much from my own failure, I realize that I have to have love, and I can't give myself love. Like, that only comes from God. And so just because we know we need love doesn't mean we can make a decision to love. And we have to spend time in prayer and reading his word so that the agape love, the unconditional love that he is, not just that he has, but that he is, that actually sent him to the cross, because he could have called legions of angels, but he chose to not. Well, it was the love he had for me when I didn't deserve his love. And if I can't in return extend love to people that I feel don't deserve my love, I'm never going to be a conduit for change. I'm never going to be able to get the message of Jesus out, because as a messenger, I am flawed and I taint it and I dilute it. That message.
And that's the challenge of where we're at, because in these days, the love of most, or the love of many, are growing cold, and that's a lot of that challenge. I mean, there's a lot of what you're saying that I think is going to resonate with people. But I think, what it's important to leave people with encouragement, but I think it's also important to leave people with some practical things they can start to do. So what are two things, hearing this message, it's resonating with somebody who's listening, what are two things that they can start to do to implement or to be a vehicle of this change, of harnessing or focusing in or finding or discovering whatever that is that they're supposed to do?
Well, I think that the best word of encouragement is that every single thing the world would tell you to disqualify you from being a leader for Jesus, everything that you are and you aren't, all of that is exactly what qualifies you with Jesus. See, Jesus works differently. Jesus doesn't accept strength and valor and bravery and all of the things the world looks at as a great military leader to make a change. If you're scared, and if you know you can't do it, and if you want to be in the background, and if you want to be unheard and unseen, and that's what your desire is, my friend, I have bad news for you. That's who Jesus is looking for. That's who he wants. I'm taken back to the incident with Moses, where in the burning bush, God calls to Moses, and once again, just like Gideon told the angel of the Lord, I can't do this, like I'm like from the weakest tribe, I'm like the weakest of my dad's family. He starts disqualifying himself immediately. So did Moses. Moses gave God all of the reasons of why he couldn't be the one. So I'm saying, practically speaking, if you are listening and you think that you are not the one, that you don't have what it takes, that's exactly who Jesus is looking for, because he wants the glory. He wants to take the people that can't do it, so that when it gets done through those people, the world has to admit that it was God. He is in it for his glory. That is what he is in it for. That is what Jesus and God are fighting for you for their glory to be seen and to be manifested. And the greatest glory to be seen is through the weakest of us. So first of all, my first encouraging word is that if you think this message is for somebody else, it's for you. You may be driving down the road right now. You may be cooking dinner. You may be taking a shower. I don't know. But if you devalued yourself and disqualified yourself and said, that sounds great, but it's not for me, that's exactly who Jesus is looking for. That's number one. Number two, I think from what I've experienced and what I have done is I committed the first part of my day to Jesus. I committed it to him. It's not mine. It's not somebody else's. It is his. I have given that to him daily. I have committed it through prayer and study and even just meditation. If you're like me, man, it takes 3 cups of coffee in a half hour to even remember where you're going that day, who you are, your name sometimes. I mean, it takes a minute now, right? Mm-hmm. But if you will determine in your heart that this is what I can do, this is within my control, no matter what attacks come against me, no matter what obstacles I am facing, this is in my control. I can do this. And even if it's for 5 minutes, if you give that back to Jesus and just simply say, strengthen me today, because why? Because I'm not strong. Give me courage today. Why? Because I'm not courageous. Give me love today. Why? Because I'm not a loving person. I mean, be honest and be real. We can't do this. We're like Moses and we're like Gideon. We realize we can't do that, but that is who Jesus is looking for, and that is who he is choosing in these last days. And then when we step out in faith, I think that the final thing that I could tell you is, learn from the story of Gideon that you're a mighty man or woman of valor. Why? Because God is with you. Not because you have the personality for it, not because you were trained for it, not because you even know what to do, but God is with you. And then he says, and you're going to defeat the Midianites easily. Why? Because I am sending you. If you know 2 things, Bill, if you know God is with you and you know God is sending you, everything else falls into place when you take that first step and you embrace the fact that you will give what little bit you have. He told the angel told Gideon, go with the might that you have. Just go with the ability, whether it's a weakness ability, whether it's a shyness, timidness, meekness, whatever it is, go with your ability. And that's it. But you have to dedicate the first part of your day to shape your mind. And that's the advice that I can give. And you can close it out by just simply narrating the victory that was won, and however you want to shape that on what happened.
I'm thinking of 2 people as you're talking, men who were able to achieve great things, who were rather meek. I'm thinking about Gandhi and then Martin Luther King Jr., who were both directly influenced by Christ. Gandhi was Hindu, but obviously Martin Luther King Jr. was, he was a preacher, but I would just think that if God is giving you a charge, that charge isn't too small. Our perception of who He is, if I said that properly. So, I don't really have anything else to add. Thank you. I think that was really good. And please subscribe, share, get this out to people. I think a lot of people need to hear this. And I think things like this aren't, as a rule of thumb, I don't like to speak just exclusively to Christians or to quote unquote churchgoers. I like to speak to whomever. So that being said, if there are people who are listening, you are a whomever, and if you know somebody that needs to hear an encouragement and a practical resources on how to begin to walk into their calling, fulfill their destiny, or I would even say more importantly, if God is speaking, or if you have a desire to do something, affect change, to leave the world a little better than where you found it, if you will, then please share this message with them. Like with my book, nobody told me but God to write this book. And there you go. So please share, please subscribe anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Flawedcast CLE, Apple, Google Play, wherever you're listening to this, Breaker, Spotify. We're now on Amazon. Also, make sure you subscribe and follow us on our Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on Getter, we're on Gab, we're on Parler under Flawed Inc. We're on Rumble under Flawed Inc. You may be listening there too. Please get a copy of my book, Just Speaking About It, Smith's Hardeman and Repair Manual. Link is below. If you'd like a copy on the house, if you can't afford it, please just reach out. No shade, no shame. flawedinccle@gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, topics, things you'd like us to discuss, send us an email there, flawedinccle@gmail.com. And I will just close with saying, as you go about your day, go in the might that the Lord has given you.